Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on an introduction to river cruising, brought to you by Spirit of Travel. We're thrilled to have you join us today to explore the serene and enchanting world of river cruising, a travel experience that weaves together the tapestry of local culture, breathtaking landscapes, and unparalleled comfort. Before we dive into today's journey, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. I am Ron Montgomery, the Director of Spirit of Travel, and your host for this session. Joining us today is Mark Richardson from Uniworld River Cruise. Now, Mark's experience in this sector goes far beyond his current role, having worked for other companies in the past and really having a very deep understanding of travel through Europe especially, but river cruising in general. And he's going to share his wealth of knowledge, his tips, and his insight to help you discover the magic of river cruising. As we navigate through today's topics, we encourage you to share any questions you may have in the chat box. You'll find it along the bottom. Should just say chat. Go ahead and click that. Type in whatever questions you may have. And at the end, we'll have a dedicated question and answer session to go through those and give you the answers you need. So without further ado, let's embark on this river cruise journey with Mark. It's all you, Mark.
I'm very lucky. I went overseas in 1987 on my OE, which ended up lasting 15 years, which is quite a long time. I ended up sort of backpacking around the world for about 8 years, and then I worked as a tour guide for 7 years, tours around Europe, Asia, North Africa, and sort of my claim to fame is I did 3 trips from London out to Kathmandu. So that they are real life-changing experiences for sure. Been involved in the travel industry for about 30 years. Probably traveled to about 100 different countries, and there's no country in the world that I wouldn't recommend to visit. They've all got something to offer: food, culture, history, scenery, beaches, whatever it is. Every country in the world has something to offer. And I've done about half a dozen river cruises, 5 in Europe and 1 in Southeast Asia. And tonight I'll talk about, what river cruising offers. To me, travel's all about finding the right experience for you, how you want to experience the destination. That's why you use Ron. He has so many connections of different products and ways to travel, different budgets, different levels of comfort, different levels of inclusion. It's all about finding the right experience for you. And river cruising, you're here to hear about river cruising. I absolutely love river cruising. I'll put on my little PowerPoint and let me know, Ron, if it works. So can we see the screen there with Uniworld? Yeah.
Yes, we
so
can.
Look, river cruising, it's all about unpacking once and being able to float through a destination, depending on where you are, whether it's Europe, whether it's Egypt, whether it's Southeast Asia. We have cruises on the Ganges. We have cruises up in Peru on the Amazon. It's all about unpacking once and having that experience. But you need to think of your river cruise vessel, it's like your hotel. It's very, I don't know if anyone's been on a river cruise, but it's very, very different to an ocean cruise. This is more your hotel, floating down the river, taking you from A to B with wonderful food and service and local experiences. That to me is what river cruising is all about. Our main focus tonight will be Europe, because that's where a majority of our cruising is. I'll touch on some of the other destinations as well. But how the river cruising works is you mainly sail overnight to get to the next destination. So you wake up somewhere new in the morning. You're 90% of the time you're docking right in the heart of the towns, the villages, because some of these, especially the old towns along the Danube, that you've got nearly 2,000 years of history of these rivers being used for transportation. So all the villages sprung up along the river. The old towns are right next to the river, and often you'll dock and you'll just be 200 meters from the old town of the city that you're visiting. So that's a real attraction of the river cruising, is you wake up somewhere new and you're very close to town. And what that allows you to do, it allows you to be as busy as you want or as relaxed as you want. If you want to sleep in and get breakfast in bed, you can. If you want to go on the included sightseeing tours, you can. If you want to go and do your own thing, you can. Uniworld has their own bikes on board. A lot of people jump on the bikes and go for a ride as well. So it really allows you to make the river cruise what you want because you're so close to the places that you're visiting. There are some places that you will stay overnight. There are some places you won't set sail to 11 a.m. But generally there is night sailing, wake up somewhere new the next day. So in Europe, we sail on 8 rivers. We haven't found any new rivers in Europe or anything. We're sailing on the 8 very navigable rivers. We have the Douro River in Portugal, which is very popular. The rivers in France, rivers around the Bordeaux region we sail on, the Seine River out of Paris that we sail on, also the Rhone River down through the Burgundy Provence region, and we can link all of those cruises with trains to link them up. We also sail almost the complete length of the Rhine River from Switzerland, Basel in Switzerland, all the way up to Amsterdam. That's very popular. The Main River, that then goes through Frankfurt across to Nuremberg, and that allows us to join into the Danube River and sail almost down to the Black Sea. We can only get to about 200 kilometers, 150 kilometers from the Black Sea. We also do something quite different. We do some cruising around the Venice Lagoon. There's no river involved at all, but you get to go to places like Burano and stay right in the heart of Venice. It is something quite different. Great for people that were thinking maybe to spend 5 or 6 days in Venice. You can actually do a Uniworld cruise, spend time in Venice, and then cruise around the lagoon nearby. Our exotic destinations, there's river cruising in Egypt. We have 2 ships currently sailing the Nile. Mentioned before, the Amazon. That's more an expedition style river cruising. Expedition means there's no real set itinerary. We just go, where the wildlife is and where the best sailing is at that particular time. My favorite country in the world, India. We do some cruising 1 week from Kolkata, starts and finishes in Kolkata along the Ganges, and there's some amazing scenes and things you see along the river there, people living by the river, often only accessible by river, pretty much no roads. And then we also have some cruising on the Mekong down in Southeast Asia as well. But look, the ships are not the most important part of a river cruise. Like I said before, the ship is taking you from A to B in comfort and style with great food, great service. Think as a hotel, not so much that, you can go on some of the ocean cruise vessels and they're a destination within themselves. Most river cruise vessels, they only have 2 or 3 different dining options. Often you can dine on the sky deck, you can dine in your room, a couple of different restaurants to choose from. There's generally 1 or 2 bar areas and lounge areas, so there's not a lot of facilities on board the ship. I'll show you some photos of that in a minute. But every Uniworld ship is different. That's quite a big difference with us. Every single one is different. You need to work with someone like Ron to find out what river you'd like to go on and then have a look at the ship. They often have themes, often themed on the destination. We've got ships that are themed on like the Habsburg Palace and the Schönbrunn Palace and the Palace of Versailles, some really beautiful ones. One has a Mozart theme, all quite different. The service is great. It's the thing when you look through brochures and you see things online, it looks like it's real sort of silver service. It is and it isn't. We had a lot of fun. I did a Uniworld last year. We had a lot of fun with the staff on board. In Europe, they're all European staff. Talk to them about their families and where they're from. And we're one of the only companies that actually employs our staff full time as well. So you could tell that they were quite happy because they knew they had a job to come back to each year. Virtually everything's included on a Uniworld cruise. So look, it's not about the drinks, absolutely not. It's teas and coffees and juices and milkshakes and mocktails. But yes, you can have a gin or a Bailey's or a port, whatever, all included. Champagne, no charge for that. It is quite nice to know that you won't have a bill as far as drinks go when you leave the ship. The food is incredible. I had some of the best food I've ever eaten in my life on my Uniworld cruise. It is all local produce. It is all cooked freshly on board the ship. They go out every day and do shopping, and the food reflects the region that you're in. They have a 5-course local menu for dinner. Plus, they have a light menu. If you don't want to eat too much, you can just get a soup. You can just get a steak. You can have whatever you want for dinner. And all the wine is paired with each meal, but the wine is also paired with the country that you're in. So when we were in Hungary, we had Hungarian wine, Austria, Austrian wine, German wine. And here at home, I don't normally drink wine, but on the Uniworld cruise, I drank wine every night because it was just so nice. I couldn't believe how nice. The only wine I wasn't a big fan of was the Rhine Riesling because it is quite dry and quite sweet. And they said, no problem, would you like the wine you had last night? And away we went. There's, you got to have those food photos these days. So on the left, German sausages we had for lunch on board the ship, obviously in German, the schnitzel for lunch in Austria. Some of the mains there, the handmade desserts, all wonderful, wonderful food. So all your meals are included. Plenty of food, lunch, morning teas, breakfast. You can have eggs Benedict made to order every morning if that's what you choose, or you can have a bowl of muesli. It's totally up to you. I do like this photo. This is on our Joie de Vivre on the Seine. That's dessert at lunchtime, would you believe? So you don't have to eat all those. I will. You don't have to, but I'm certainly on board to try all the different types of food that they've got on offer. There is a gym on board. I never made it to the gym, but cooking demonstrations all based on the local food. There could be a local historian coming on board and talk about the history of the region. At night, again, very low key. There could be a local musician. This group of people are on a Christmas market cruise and they're learning the Viennese waltz. So it is quite very different again to what you would expect on an ocean cruise. So it's very, very low key. And most people are off to bed, 11 o'clock at the latest. River cruise vessels from the outside, they all pretty much look the same. And you physically cannot build a river cruise ship any higher, any wider, or any longer. They will not fit inside the locks. So that the longest ships are 135 meters, which is quite long. And we only have a maximum of 150 guests on board. Other companies have up to 200 people, but we like to keep it a little bit more intimate. And we do have some ships of just 100 people as well. But this slide is a good example of the different styles of rooms you can get on board the river cruises. The classic stateroom is the what we call lead-in room. That'll be whenever you see pricing on flyers or in offering deals, it's normally for a classic stateroom, and you can see there's quite a small window that's up quite high. Personally, I would rather be in a French balcony or a deluxe stateroom or a deluxe balcony. They're the same size rooms, but you can see you've got full size windows or sliding glass doors or things. So it does make it feel a little bit bigger. Again, this is a very personal thing. A lot of people find they are only in their rooms to sleep on a river cruise because you are out during the day. You probably come back and get changed for dinner. Dinner's just smart casual. You haven't got to wear a suit or a tie or anything like that. And like I said before, most of the sailing is actually overnight. But if you are sailing during the day, you don't want to be in your room. You want to be up on the sky deck or in one of the lounge bars to have the beautiful, 360-degree view. So yeah, they're the different types of state rooms and balcony rooms. And then we have the suites. Some ships have 2, some have 4, some have 8. And suites on river cruises are always the rooms that go first. These are the rooms. As soon as they go on sale, the 6 or 8 suites are gone. If you are thinking about, look, I might be spending a bit more time in my room, you may want to think about a suite because they are much bigger and there is a seating area. One thing you'll notice about the French balcony rooms and the classic rooms, they are much smaller than a hotel room and much smaller than a lot of ocean cruise rooms. The reason for that, most people are only in them to sleep, but the suites are double the size almost. And as I said before, it's not about the ships. That's not the best bit. The ship is how you get from A to B with your wonderful food, wonderful service, inclusions. Uniworld will pick you up at the airport, bring you to the ship. Tipping's included on board, but it's about the destination. It's about experiencing the places that you visit on the cruise. And we try and do our shore excursions in much smaller groups, 10 and 15 people per local guide, to try and keep it more intimate and give you a better experience. We have a choice of included excursions in almost every city that you don't pay anything extra for. There's things like village days, which are wonderful. Going out to a local village, you do go by coach to those because they are a little bit of a drive away. They have exclusive experiences where you can go to art galleries and the like before they're open, or after they're closed. We have active experiences. These are the bikes we have on the ship, but we also have guided bike tours, guided hiking tours. So there is plenty. A lot of people say, I'm not going to be as active as I want. You can be very active on board the river cruise. And then my favorite one is do as the locals do. This is where you'll meet local people, meet families, go to farmers markets, try the food. So there is a lot of immersing in the culture and the local people as well. But you can make it your own. So this is me in Vienna. I didn't go back to the ship for lunch. I love Viennese schnitzel and I quite enjoy trying all different types of beer. But this is a photo just saying you can make the river cruise your own. You can stay out for lunch. You can come back to the ship for lunch. You can do your own thing. You can do the included things. And in some cities, you mightn't set sail to 11 or 12 o'clock. So you can even go out in the city. And other cities like Amsterdam and Budapest, you'll actually stay overnight. So you can go out and experience those cities at night. So looking at some of the rivers you can cruise on, we mentioned this before. This is Central Europe. About half of the Rhine River, the Main River. There's actually a man-made canal that runs from the city there. You might be able to just pick it out. It's called Bamberg. So they made a canal back in the 30s between Bamberg and Regensburg, and that allows us to then link into the Danube River and head down towards the Black Sea. Sort of north of Nuremberg, all the rivers are running out to the North Sea. And south of Nuremberg, the rivers are actually running in the opposite direction down towards the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. So people ask me which is the best direction to go on a river cruise. It doesn't matter. It just depends where you would like to finish and start. There's absolutely no difference on which direction you go, no difference on what side of the ship you're on. It's very different to the ocean cruising when it comes to that. The most popular cruise that we sell here in New Zealand is called European Jewels, and most companies will have something similar that runs between Amsterdam and Budapest. Very historic part of Europe, very historic rivers, lots of beautiful little villages along the way. Again, doesn't matter which direction you can go. You can start or finish in beautiful Amsterdam. A lot of people will finish in Amsterdam if they're planning to head over to the UK maybe afterwards. Just depends exactly like I said, where you want to start and finish. Other people might finish in Budapest and head down to Istanbul or somewhere like that, down to Turkey afterwards. This is the Rhine Gorge, the beautiful Rhine Gorge, the narrowest part of the Rhine River. There's around 60 castles or ruins of castles within about 60 kilometers. You will always sail through here during the day. So you don't sail through the picturesque parts at night. The itineraries are designed to have some morning and afternoon sailing through some of the more picturesque parts of Europe. And like I said, you don't want to be in your room looking at one side of the river. You want to be up on the sky deck or in one of the lounges looking at both sides of the river. And there's commentary from the cruise director as well as you're traveling along. Another real highlight is visiting these less visited cities. Beautiful Bamberg, over 1,100 years of history here. And wonderful Regensburg down on the Danube. The ship's docked just to the left of the bridge there, and that's the entrance into the medieval old town. That's just how close you are in most places to where you want to be wandering around. And I was in this city again last year, and it's just as beautiful as it ever was. Stunning place to spend some time. And of course, beautiful Budapest, one of the great cities of Europe. You can see there where the ships dock, and that's the main part of town. That's the Pest side, and we're taking the photo here from the Buda side with the chain bridge in between, which was the first bridge to link Buda and Pest. Castles along the Rhine. There is a video, but we won't be looking at that. But yeah, this is on our beautiful ship called the Antoinette, and it has a Palace of Versailles theme around it. Lovely, again, another 135-meter ship. We'll just jump through the video.
You are coming through quite well if you did want to try the video.
What was that, Rob?
You're coming through very well if you want to try the video.
Okay. Let's give it a go. How's that? Oh, there you go. So you'll see a few images here of the beautiful Antoinette, lovely ship. It's even got a very small swimming pool, which a lot of people ask about. You only get a butler in the suite, and I've never had a butler, but people tell me you don't know you need a butler till you actually have one, and then you realise that you do need a butler. Some wine tasting, that's all included as well. You'll sail through that beautiful Rhine Valley, the Rhine Gorge. These are beautiful storybook villages with cobblestone streets. And as I said before, you look from the outside, the ships all look the same. It's what actually happens on the inside, which is the big difference. But there is a guided biking tour if you want to be active. I did a 28-kilometre guided bike tour along the Danube. It took us 3.5 hours. The cruise director made a very big point, at least a dozen times. If you haven't been on a bike for 5 years, now is not the time to start. And a few people did jump on bikes, and yeah, there was a few little interesting moments, but it was a beautiful ride along the Danube in the autumn time on a Sunday morning. And then we rode into Passau. The bells were ringing. It was absolutely wonderful. And then you've got a guided hiking tour here. This is called the Danube Bend for obvious reasons, near a little village of Boppard. And there's a guided walk up, and there's a cafe up there if you want to get a coffee or a beer or something and overlook the Danube. Around 30% of our guests from New Zealand are traveling to France to do a river cruise. And as I mentioned before, there's 3 regions: the Bordeaux region, southwest of France, the Seine, where the cruise starts and finishes in Paris. You visit different places on the way up and the way back, and then Burgundy, Provence, which is Lyon down to Arles, or vice versa. Doesn't matter which way you go, but you can link 2 of those cruises together, or you can do the Grand France, which is 22 days and all 3 rivers. But by far the most popular is the Burgundy Provence. And what we see with our 1-week river cruises, this is just 1 week of maybe a 4-week holiday. You might go and do something in the UK. You might do a self-drive around Scotland. You might go and stay in a villa in Tuscany. You might do an ocean cruise around the Mediterranean. But a lot of people are now adding in a river cruise to that experience. And if you are thinking about doing any cruising, that be ocean or river, do it towards the end, because that's your unpack once experience. That's it. Put your bags away, unpack, and as I said before, all the wonderful service and food and things on the way. A real attraction is visiting these little villages. This is the village, well, it's actually a town, would you believe, of Viviers. It's only got 3,000 people, but it's actually a city because it has a cathedral. So it's the city of Viviers with 3,000 people. You have a guided tour, all included, walking through the beautiful narrow streets. And when I was guiding in Europe, we used to, I was a tour guide for many years. We used to walk around and admire all of the beautiful buildings. But Uniworld actually take you in to meet a family, have some wine and cheese with them. And this particular lady that you go, or family that you go and visit, her auntie was part of the French resistance. And she actually shows you the tunnels that are built all through the town that all would meet up at the church where all the French resistance people would go and meet and plot against Germany, which is amazing. So just a simple thing, by opening up some doors and going into the courtyard and meeting some locals, gives you a very different perspective of the places that you're visiting. Portugal, very popular, very, very popular, the Douro River. So we've got a new ship there called the Sal Gabriel, obviously a Portuguese theme. It's a 7-night cruise. We can add on 3 nights in Lisbon to that as well if you choose. But you start and finish in the beautiful city of Porto, wonderful city, home of port wine and the famous custard tarts that the monks used to make. And then you sail along the river. Now, this is a little bit different. It's day sailing only. This is a tidal river, and you're not allowed to navigate this river after dark. So it's quite a different experience. You'll sail during the day, not a particularly long distance, and then you'll stop overnight and visit the little towns and villages. And one of the experiences on this cruise is you actually go to a wine estate and have a very traditional meal off the ship as part of the cruise, all included, no extra charge for that as well. So this is a World UNESCO Heritage Site, the Douro Valley. It's absolutely stunning. So look, we've looked at Europe. If you're thinking about going elsewhere, as I mentioned before, we have the 2 ships sailing along the Nile. These include accommodation, 4 nights at a very nice hotel in Cairo, probably the Marriott or the Mena Gardens, looking at the pyramids, depending on which itinerary you choose. We then fly you down to Luxor, and you cruise for 7 nights down to Aswan, and then back up to Luxor and finish in the same place. And same deal, you'll visit different temples and towns on the way up and on the way back. Ships are a little bit different. We must use local operators outside of Europe, which is a good thing, because that is making sure that local people have these businesses and local people have these jobs and local people operate these on behalf of Uniworld. So we use 2 ships down there. One's called the River Tosca. This is what we call an all-suite ship. All 40 rooms are suites on this particular vessel. And then we use the Sphinx, which is a mixture of deluxe French balcony cabins and suites, but much smaller, only 80 people traveling on these. Look, it's not a big deal, but drinks are only included during meals in Egypt, alcoholic drinks, being an Islamic country. You can purchase your drinks at other times. Soft drinks are available all day, as is tea and coffee. I love this part of the world. I was lucky enough to cruise the Mekong probably more than 10 years ago now. But this is a package again. It includes 2 nights in Hanoi, flying down to Siem Reap for 3 nights, and then a 7-night cruise along the Mekong. And we did design our own ship, the Mekong Jewel. It's only a couple of years old. Again, built by locals, operated by locals. One of the best ships sailing on the Mekong River. Again, it's an all-suite ship, around 68 guests on board this one, so a little bit smaller. Then we also do some expedition cruising up in the Peruvian part of the Amazon, out of a town called Iquitos. And what we mean by expedition is we're not quite sure where we're going to go. We'll just go where the rivers are the best, the wildlife's the best, the scenery's the best. And this one also includes 3 nights in Lima, 2 nights in Cuzco, Sacred Valley, and then up to Aguas Caliente for 1 night for Machu Picchu, and includes all your local flights there as well. We use the Aria Amazon there, just 16 suites, so 32 guests in total on board. Again, very inclusive for your meals, your drinks, your on-shore excursions, etc. And then the last one we'll look at is India. So I mentioned before, I absolutely love this country. I used to drive buses through India, which was probably took about 10 years off my life, but it was great fun. This particular itinerary has 2 nights in New Delhi, 1 night Agra, 2 nights Jaipur, and you stay in the beautiful Oberoi hotels. I could only dream in staying in those hotels when I was sort of backpacking through there. I love to go back and stay at those wonderful hotels. And then we fly you across to Kolkata, and you do your 7-night cruise, which starts and finishes in Kolkata. And you can also add on Udaipur at the beginning and Varanasi at the end as well, if you're thinking about India. And we use the Ganges Voyager there. It's an all-suite ship of around 68 people. Bucket list experiences. We had a pretty tough time there in the industry, and in the world, in fact, the last few years. And a lot of people say to me, Mark, my life was on hold for a few years, didn't know what was going to happen. I really want to go and have some bucket list experiences. And we do have one of those. We have something called Rivers of the World. It ran last year. It's almost full for this year, but we're working on next year as well. This is 3 continents, 10 countries, 4 floating boutique hotels. And this one, actually, you get yourself to Peru, and it starts with our Peru experience up in the Amazon on the Aria. We then fly you down to Iguazu Falls and Rio de Janeiro for a couple of nights, then across to Amsterdam to sail on the European Jewel itinerary all the way down to Budapest for 15 days. We then fly you to France, and you have 7 nights, 8 days on the Rhone. And we then fly you across to Southeast Asia, and you do our 15-day package in Southeast Asia. So you get yourself to Peru, you get yourself home from Southeast Asia. We take care of everything else in between: the flights, the transfers, the hotels, and of course the cruises. So if you're looking for a bucket list experience and you want to know more, have a chat to Ron about this one. So look, why Uniworld? We spoke about the very inclusive. Pretty much everything's included on Uniworld. There are some things to pay for. One example is in Vienna. There's a Mozart concert in the evening, and if you'd like to go and do that, you do pay a little bit extra for that. There's also a strudel making class you can do, and you do pay a little bit extra for that. But all your everyday sightseeing, your meals on board, your drinks, your tipping, your airport transfers, that there's very, very little left to pay for. And of course, the big thing about the river cruising is you're unpacking once, you're floating through these countries, you're going to less visited places along the river, sometimes very small villages. They do restrict the number of ships that can be docked in each place overnight. So you will get quite a lot of ships in places like Amsterdam and Budapest where cruises start and finish. But it's almost like air traffic control. You have to let people know, authorities know where your ship's going to be about 18 months in advance, because you have to book the locks to get through as well. So some people say, oh, does it get quite busy, Mark? Not really, because some places you can see here looks like we're in the Rhine Valley. There's just two ships docked next to each other. But you do need to know that you do have to walk through other ships to get to the port. And I do make a little joke about opening your curtains up in the morning, because you've got to be a little bit careful, because there can be another ship literally 6 inches away from you. So I do encourage people to wear the robes that are provided before you open up the curtains in the morning, or it could be the port workers on the other side as well. But yeah, it is important to know that you do have to walk through. Generally in Europe, no more than two other ships. The tricky thing to remember is you might be first to arrive, so you're docked next to the port, but you might be first to leave. So while you're away, they move your ship. Just make sure you're going on the right ship. So they do have security, and they won't let you on another ship. But a few people have said, "Oh, we couldn't find our ship," so they might move them while you're away. Yeah, that's just a very brief overview about how river cruising is and how it works. I will stop sharing my screen. Did that work, Ron?
That was fantastic. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark. I have to say, India is also my favorite country to visit. And if any of you are looking at that India cruise, I haven't been to Varanasi yet, but you have to add on Udaipur as the start extension at the beginning, because that was my favorite city over there. It's absolutely brilliant. One other thing that popped in my head as you went along is talking about suites. I had some clients come back from their cruise last winter, and they had taken a suite ship all along the Amsterdam to Budapest ship. And what they found was is that in the course of a longer cruise like that, they actually got to know a lot of the people, because you're seeing the same, unlike a cruise ship of 1,000 people or 2,000 people, you're seeing the same people on a regular basis. You're often in similar patterns, and they found that there was even a bit of friend matchmaking by the staff to match different couples up, and then everybody meets for a drink in the bar after dinner and kind of goes from there. So having a suite meant that about a week in, they decided that they were going to have a little cocktail party in the suite, and they actually the cruise line was absolutely happy to just throw the party for them. And because everything was already included, it didn't even cost them anything extra. It might, that might change from cruise to cruise, but in this particular case, they had a nice little cocktail party with 15 people in their suite. Just something a little bit different again. And so, yeah, I guess in that particular case, there was a bigger use case than might have been stated otherwise.
Yep.
So that was fantastic. So I do have some questions to ask you, Mark, and if you have any questions as well that you want to pop into the chat, please feel free to go ahead. Or actually, we've got a smaller crowd. If you did want to just say it out loud, you can say that as well. Just maybe give me a little wave so that I stop talking, and I'll give you a moment to talk. We'll start though with can we talk about seasonality? So we've got, there's pros and cons to different seasons, and we certainly have, different parts of the world. Could you maybe give us a bit of an idea of when and where and why?
Yeah, well, so in Europe, we sail from March. So the cruises are just starting now. There's only not a lot of cruises going at the moment, but if you want to sail early season, they are going now, and they run through pretty much to like 1 or 2 January. So there's nothing really in January, February. We're not cruising then. So you've obviously got the springtime. So we're sailing through the spring. Can be quite a good time to cruise. The snow's melting, the flowers are coming out, not as many people around, still a little bit cool at night. Then we move into summer. I mean, every season's got its advantages. I think summer is great because in Europe, especially Northern Europe, it doesn't get dark till 11 o'clock at night. So when you're even sailing at night, you're still able to see things. Even when it's dark at night in Europe, it's interesting. It's amazing. The castles are lit up, the churches are lit up, the bridges are lit up. Everything's lit up as you're going through the towns. So you still get to see stuff. The most popular time to cruise is autumn. So September, October is definitely, for whatever reason, the most popular, the busiest time. So you do definitely need to book that early. And then we move into November, December, and you've got the beautiful Christmas markets. So I guess in Europe, it's a very personal thing, whether you want to be there spring, summer, autumn, Christmas market times. Outside of Europe, we sail all year round in Egypt. But if you go in June, July, August, it can be hot. So they tend to be a little bit cheaper to cruise at that. If you don't mind 42 degrees, it's quite a dry heat. It's down in Aswan. I've been there when it's sort of 45 degrees, but it can get quite hot in Egypt, obviously through their summer. So the most popular time for cruising in Egypt is like November, December, January, February. Where in Cairo, it can be sort of under 20 degrees. So it can be quite cool. The other destinations, rainy seasons come into play. So Peru has their wettest months, January, February. So I'm pretty sure we stop cruising in December and we start again around maybe April, but kind of missing the real bad wet season. And then over in India and Southeast Asia, same. The wet season runs from May to September. So we're not cruising through those months as well. But it can be quite warm, obviously, in those parts of the world. Hanoi can get quite cool in their winter time compared to Ho Chi Minh. But that's probably where you come into play, Ron. People say, what sort of weather they want to experience while they're away, and you can go through and find the right departures. But definitely the wet seasons are the big ones where we won't be. And even in Southeast Asia in April, the water levels can get quite low, so you won't see departures in April very often either. So we want to try and make sure that the times of year we're operating are suiting the rivers. Yeah.
Great, great. What about any tips you have for first-time cruisers?
It's a very personal thing. Like I would say, focus more on the experience you want and less on how much the cruise is. And I know that's really hard because we're all on budgets. But I think it's more important to go away and, if you want that food experience or that wine experience or that sweet experience or the more inclusive experience, try and come up with a way that you can have the right experience for you. Because I think if you want that experience, but you go on a cheaper option, you're still going to have a good time. But I came back from Uniworld last year and it was one of those experiences that you look back on and you just go, wow. And that's what you want out of traveling. You want to come home and go, wow, that was amazing. Let's do it again. So, yeah, look, it depends on, what room category you want, what is important to you. If the room isn't important, it doesn't matter. You definitely look. I'd go suite every time if I could. I think if you're going to have a once in a lifetime experience on Amsterdam, Budapest, get yourself a suite. Absolutely, like you said, you can have other people in there. There's more room in there. But it's a very personal thing, and that's again where you come into play. Your clients will give you their wish list about how they'd like to experience a river cruise, and then you can match that with the right product for them. Yep.
Right. That's how we go. Marvelous. And
Yep.
I guess I have one last question, which would be, of all the rivers, which would be the one that if you could just get on a plane tomorrow would be the one you'd go to?
If I went to Europe, if it was Europe, I'd do Amsterdam, Budapest.
Yeah.
Rhine, Main, Danube, beautiful cities, history. Love the food, love the people, love the beer, love the wine. I'd go there, and then outside of there, I'd go and do the Ganges. Yeah, I just I love the culture, the food, the people, and I'd love to go back and do that Kolkata cruise for a week. It's a hard choice. Egypt's good, Douro's good, but if I had if they were the two, they'd be the two that I'd love to go back and do. Yeah.
Marvelous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone have any last questions for Mark?
Anything at all? Oh, Rob. Oh, there we go.
The one in Portugal, you said that you mainly cruise during the day.
Yep.
To the size of the river. So does that mean that you're visiting the places that you visit on shore? You're doing it mainly in the evening when it's dark? Or?
No, because you're only traveling a very short distance on the Douro River. So you might only sail for 3 hours and then have the afternoon, the evening, and then leave the next day as well. Because I think I'd have to check, but I think you're only traveling about 200 kilometers in total. So you're not traveling very far each day, and you might even find that it gets light at 5 a.m. and you might wake up for breakfast and you're already cruising off to the next destination. You might be there by 10. Yeah. If you want to know more, I can definitely dive a little bit deeper and find out more about the cruise times for that cruise. I haven't done that cruise and go back to Ron. But all the feedback we've had about it is wonderful. Yeah, you're definitely going to be in villages during the day and at night. Yep. Yep. And have a look at the ship's called the Sal Gabriel. It's quite new. And it's just beautiful. Portuguese tiles, wonderful food. It's much smaller than the other ships, just 100 people. And we're getting really good feedback about that part of the world. Yeah.
And when you're making a booking on your website, or when Ron's booking, you can find out how many people the ship takes.
Yep. So that's the key with Uniworld is every ship is so different that you would say to Ron, I'm thinking about the Rhine, and Ron would come back and say, well, these are the 3 ships that sail on the Rhine, and then you'd go through and find which one you'd like and what cabin style you like. And so on the Douro, there's just the one ship. On the Rhone, there's just one ship. On the Seine, there's just. But when you start doing the Rhine and the Danube, like the Danube has about 8 ships that sail, ranging from 120 people to 150 people. So again, it's all about finding the right one for you. But they're all very different. Yeah. And some Uniworld people love the fact they're all different because they want to travel on the different ships and have that different experience.
Okay, thank you.
One of the elements that I've always found really attractive about Uniworld versus a lot of the other river cruise companies in Europe, especially, is that many of the other ones have a certain uniformity to them across all of the rivers, and they're often, even if they are a European company, they often have very much a Western feel and a Western design, sort of Western, think luxury Western hotel, whereas when you're in Europe and you're interacting with the culture, to come back and to have with Uniworld, we're in France and now we have very much a French themed cruise ship. It just adds it's not as disjointed. It really adds a nice complement. So it just has that little extra bit of charm where you're that much more immersed for the entirety of the trip.
And Ron, they're also floating art galleries. Like the family that own the travel corporation that own Uniworld have this art collection, but instead of keeping it at home, it's on the Uniworld ships. And there's original Dalis and Picassos on the ship, because I asked the crew, I'm like, is that original? And they're like, yep, that is original artwork, which was, I'm not real big into art, but I just had to walk around the ship. They're like, there's a glass Murano horse in the foyer, things like that. I know it's just hidden away in a corner. It's not sitting there in the middle of the room or anything, but it's very subtle. But everything about it is class. Yeah. So to have that original artwork, it was pretty amazing on board. Yeah.
So how would you compare Uniworld with the seagoing cruise lines? Where would it fit in the pecking order of seagoing cruise lines?
Seabourn.
Right.
Okay.
So I used to work for Seabourn. I did a Seabourn cruise, and I would, the food, the service, the wine, the staff, not the rooms, because the Seabourn rooms are much bigger because they're all quite big suites. But as far as the service and the food and the staff and the like, could tell with their onshore experience, they were getting the best local guides available, by a country mile. Some of the best tours I've ever had of Vienna and Passau and Bratislava. Just everything they're doing is just every little touch point's just at that right level. Yeah. And look, don't get me wrong, you'll river cruise with other companies and you'll absolutely love it as well. They're all good. They've all got their good points and price points and inclusions and but Uniworld's just sitting there with the I had the best New Zealand lamb I've ever had on Uniworld. How's that possible? The bread comes out at breakfast, it's still hot, and the butter melts into it. It's just little. Can I have eggs Benedict? Of course you can. Off they go and make it. It's just the little things like that. The rugby was on while we were there. The semi-finals, and just to give you an idea, the concierge guy heard about that, and there was a few Kiwis, Aussies, South Africans, Brits on board. And he said, right, we're setting up a TV for you in the back bar. You've got your own barman. We're going to give you snacks. And to me, they didn't have to do that, but they just did it because they knew that we'd enjoy the rugby. Lucky it wasn't the final because the South Africans would have been pretty hard to live with. But yeah, just to do that for us, that kind of summed up to me what Uniworld's all about. Yep.